Hi, Doug Martin here. Today, my topic may seem either unusual if you're a parent or self evident if you're a behavior analyst. But in reality, there's a lot of confusion about what exactly evidence based practice is and why it is important. Now, if you're a parent, you may be faced with the choice of which program to enroll your child in that have vastly different educational philosophies. Or you may be a special education teacher who must choose the best reading program to use for a middle school student with mild intellectual disabilities. You may be a group home staff person who's taken a resident for mental health counseling and you're not sure about the approach the therapist is using. And as a behavior analyst who's going into a home to deliver services, you may think evidence-based practices is just a simple choice between the so-called 28 approved evidence-based treatments. But evidence-based practice is not as simple as choosing the one best treatment, research-based treatment for a particular child or adult. And that is one source of confusion. Evidence-based practice is more complicated than that and is much more than using one of the approved treatment approaches. The place to start is to define what evidence-based practice really is. But first, if you find this information valuable, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'd really appreciate that. Now, in the 1960s, there was a concern in medicine about using unvalidated and potentially harmful treatments. So, in 1972, a medical doctor by the name of Archie Cochran highlighted the fact that most medical treatment decisions were not based on a systematic review of the clinical evidence. He proposed that researchers should collaborate, work together, review all the best clinical trials. And this led to the development of evidence-based practice standards in medicine. Later, other disciplines such as clinical psychology and special education followed. A Canadian-American doctor, D.L. Sackett, in 1995 proposed a definition that is still relevant today. EBP, evidence-based practice, is the integration of the best research evidence with clinical expertise and patient values. The word practice in evidence-based practice does not refer to an intervention. Instead, it refers to a decision-making process that includes using the best available research evidence, the expertise of the person implementing the intervention, and client values. Many professionals have confused empirically supported treatments with evidence-based practice, thinking they're one and the same thing. It's a common misconception that many people make. It is important to stress that evidence-based treatment cannot be the sole basis for a decision. Effective decision-making is a complex process and requires both clinical expertise and client values to enter into the equation. This is not to say that developing lists of interventions are not important. They're very, very valuable. Now, let's take a closer look at the three components: best available evidence, clinical expertise, and client values. All right, let's start with best available evidence. Best available evidence is a critical concept in evidence based practice. When possible, use the most scientifically supported, most effective treatment procedures. But the term best can vary in quality. Better quality evidence is preferred over lower quality evidence. This is where evidence based treatments enter into the picture. Evidence based treatments are one component of best available evidence and are based on comprehensive research and demonstrate long term effectiveness. So, one component of the best available evidence is evidence based treatment. Now, EBTs. So, evidence based treatments are frequently presented as the only option to use when working with people with autism and other developmental delays. But many times, parents, teachers, professional support staff may find there are no EBTs available for the particular client with the particular problem they're dealing with. This is especially true when you're providing support to an adult with a developmental delay, because much of the evidence comes from studies of children and adolescents, with much less evidence based treatments available for adults with challenging behaviors. Sometimes you will have to choose a non evidence based treatment. If so, try and pick those that are potentially effective, but lack a large enough body of research to be labeled as effective. I will be discussing the concept of evidence based treatments in more detail in my next video that will be released shortly. Okay, second component, clinical expertise. Clinical expertise is defined by the competence of the individual who is delivering the service. What is their education, their training and experience? Are they knowledgeable about the research literature and how it applies to the individual they are working with? When the research isn't clear, do they intensify their search of all the relevant literature? Do they recognize when they may need outside consultation for a given problem area? How good are their interpersonal skills? Are they able to explain their approach to parents and other support providers in clearly understandable terms? The third component is client values. Client values include not only the individual, but other persons involved with the client, frequently parents and direct support providers like group home and vocational staff. The client's wants, needs, and culture needs to be taken into consideration when choosing an intervention. Now, a good example of this was a family I was working with one time who had a child with autism who had serious sleep problems. It was very difficult to get him to go to bed at a reasonable time and to stay in bed and not go into the parents' bedrooms each and every night. Now, a comprehensive sleep management program was developed that had an extinction component. Ignore the child's crying and screaming. While there was very good research evidence for using extinction for sleep problems like this, the parents said, it's unacceptable. They would not do it. It was too mean, too harsh. So a graduated extinction program was coupled with a positive bedtime routine was implemented instead. It took longer, but it did work. And the research base for this was possibly efficacious, but it was in line with the parents' values. The parents readily agreed to this approach. In summary, evidence-based practice consists of three components: best available evidence, clinical expertise, and client values. This is a decision-making process. It utilizes the best available evidence for a particular case. It explicitly recognizes the role of clinical expertise. And it reminds the practitioner to always include the client and other providers, especially parents, when developing the intervention. So the question today is for the practitioner. Are you only a technician who rigidly defines evidence-based practice as one of the approximately 28, maybe a few more by now, approved treatments for developmental disabilities? Or are you a decision maker who recognizes that evidence cannot be the sole basis for a treatment decision? That effective decision making is complex, that it also requires clinical expertise and a recognition of the fact that the effectiveness of an intervention is highly dependent on the context in which it is implemented. And important parts of the context are the client's wants, needs, and values. Now, many of the ideas that I shared with you today came from an article by Slocum et al. In 2014, The Evidence-Based Practice of Applied Behavior Analysis. It was published in the Behavior Analyst. Slocum and his group provide a framework for evidence-based practice in the field of applied behavior analysis. And if you're interested in getting a copy of this article, which is excellent, just click on the link below and I will send it to you. Don't forget, if you're interested in everything I'm talking about, to hit both the like and the subscribe buttons and turn on that little bell next to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my uploads, because I know you're going to love them. This channel is being designed especially for you. Take a look at my online Moving Beyond Meltdowns Academy that has 2 programs for you, a mindfulness program and a healthy eating program designed just for you, the support provider. That link is also below. And in the next video, I will be discussing the confusing state of evidence-based treatments. It's not as straightforward and simple as it seems, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Please leave any comments you might have or any suggestions for topics you'd like to see covered. I'd really appreciate that. So see you next time, and just keep on trucking.